Fleeing from the Cylon tyranny, the Borgcast Galactica leads a ragtag fugitive fleet of feedbackers on a lonely quest for a shining drink known as beer. Hello, friend.
Hello.
And welcome to Borgcast Galactica 1.9. And today we're covering the double-length episode, which still manages to be very much a game of two halves, I think you'll find.
Yeah.
Greetings from Earth.
We've actually found human life forms.
Look at them.
Oh, my Lord.
Hopefully this is our first contact with an Earth vehicle.
The lives of those people do not belong to us. They must be allowed to continue on their journey.
Can you identify them?
I've never seen flying craft remotely similar.
Do not lose contact with those ships.
You'd have to be pretty powerful to beat the Alliance.
Take us away with the first half, Anne-Marie.
Well, it is the better half.
Yes.
So you've got another one of these captain's logs, except it isn't commander's logs, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
From Adama, talking about bright lights and where they ships from Earth and...
Yeah, just remind you of that stuff that's not going to feature at all in this story.
Yeah, basically. And then you've got this weird shit I don't get that I'm hoping you'll explain, because it happens more than once, where they're asleep on their ships and their ships are beeping at them. And then he goes, was I in sleep period? And I'm thinking, were you supposed to be asleep while you're flying a ship?
Yeah, that is terribly weird, but yes, apparently it's a thing.
Really?
Yeah. They out so long they go to sleep for a while to preserve their oxygen or something. I don't know. It's weird.
It's weird shit.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Anyway, they find this sublight vehicle, which just looks like a bad Doctor Who model, and is very orange.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it is very orange. There's no arguing that. And it's a bit stubby, but it's not too bad. I've seen far, far worse, believe me.
Just because you've seen worse doesn't mean this isn't bad.
Yeah, really, I wouldn't class it as bad. But anyway.
I do. It's like, I look at the Vipers and I like them, and to me they seem real. That does not seem like a real thing. It looks
very space shuttle-y to me, to be honest. So
to me it says Kinder Egg.
Right. Okay.
Alright, it looks like, almost that you expect it to come in two halves that you snap together out of really cheap plastic.
Wow. Okay.
And there are 6 life forms on there. And then you have Adama. This is before they really know what it is they've got into. You've got Adama sort of trying to calm everyone down and say, don't get your hopes up or whatever. And then they go on the ship and they're basically in MRI scanners with disco lights.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
It's done out like Santa's grotto.
It is.
With those lights. Very sad. It's a decent full-size prop they've built. And from the outside, I think it looks very good. But yes, the inside is just so naff.
Yeah, really bad.
And we got Dr. Wilker, who's the tech dude, and Dr. Salick, who's the doctor. Doctor.
But we've seen both of them before, haven't
we? We have, yes. They're regularly reoccurring now, which is quite fun.
But, man, and the music they're playing.
Yeah. And we see some children in the pods.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think they're particularly referred to by name in the story, but one of them's called Charity.
Yeah, now, Charity is mentioned as a name in the second part.
And she's played by Michelle Larson. Wonder whose relative she could be. There's Melanie, played by Gillian Green. Wonder whose relative she could be. And Todd, played by Eric Larson. I wonder how they got those jobs.
Yeah. And there's an even tinier one, but you don't see it at this stage.
Yeah.
That's another Larson, I think. And then you have this sort of discussion going on about Adama can't be the one making all the decisions, and they make a good point. This is no longer a military matter, which is true. If they've decontaminated them and there's no obvious immediate threat, then
it's interesting.
But isn't Adama also a civilian leader somehow in a way that I don't understand?
Yeah, so he has total power except for when he doesn't.
Yeah, yes.
And apparently, therefore, Salick isn't a military doctor because he can't be overruled by a superior officer. Yeah, so the two science dudes are completely independent of the military, interestingly. It's very odd.
Yeah. But you also have the discussion and the mention, and it happens on numerous occasions, that where they were going and where they're from both could be questions that are crucial to the survival of the fleet. And that is true. That's not... You don't know what it is where they're from, where they're going to, or why. And I do understand why they want to get answers to those questions. And then you have the terrible school scenes. And the kids have a question indicator. This classroom is a quiz show. You have to buzz to answer the question.
It's bizarre, isn't it? Because, clearly putting your hand up is not high-tech enough, so they have to have little light bulbs.
Oh.
Light bulb.
Yeah.
But they do have schools. So all those times that Boxy was just wandering around the ship and on the bridge, should have been in school, really, shouldn't he?
Yeah, but then Athena clearly went to Starfleet teacher training college.
Oh, she's worse even than that, isn't she? Because she goes off with Boxy and just leaves the rest of the class there.
Yeah.
Now, this is Athena and Boxy's last episode.
Oh.
Yeah. And it has to be said that Athena really has not been well served by this series, has she? She's just ended up as a teacher now. And a not very good one, that either. I mean, really, her main character arc has been she's in love with Starbuck, but so's Cassiopeia, and they have some sort of rivalry going. Yay, 70s TV.
Yeah.
And Boxy, he's been annoying some of the time, obviously, especially the way he can just wander onto the bridge, but he also comes up with the occasional amusing line, and he actually swears in this one as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So then you have this conversation in the bar starts between Apollo and Starbuck and ends up involving some police at some point.
Security Officer Reese, who's lurking at the back, looking at them all.
Yeah.
Giving them death stares all the time. You think, yes, kind of feeling this character's going to come into play at some point. He's like when one of the non-regulars in Cheers gets a line and you know they're going to be a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Starbuck's he basically says Starbuck's all about the binary. And, civilizations are made on what happens in between. Which, in theory, works as a sort of a philosophical idea until he uses the analogy, a girl says yes, a girl says no.
I think you'll find that is binary.
Yeah. Either it's consent or it isn't. I'm not sure.
And Apollo acts like a knob throughout this episode.
He does.
He's got, I don't know, he's just really weird and extreme about how overprotective he is of these people, and perhaps he doesn't want to know anything about them. Quick, get them back out again, get them out. And he freaks Boxy talking about how they could be contagious, and he seems rather out of character, to be honest.
He does. Because even Adama tells him to calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a nutter, really, to be honest, at this point. And I get what he's saying, in the sense that, we shouldn't be so willing to sacrifice these people in the ships when we don't understand their technology. But Adama and the Doctor are far more eloquent and reasonable and not mad about it.
Yes.
Because there's a scientist dude, whose name I can't remember.
Dr. Wilco.
Yeah. Wilco, I'll call him. So Wilkinson's says that they've got to try one and see what happens with one. And I get that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, there are human beings they're talking about.
Yeah, it's not like...
Suck it and see really isn't an approach you're taking with human lives.
And so there's an extent to which I get where Apollo's coming from, but he's just being utterly nuts about it.
Yeah.
So then you get the Council of 12 wanting to mosey on in.
Yes.
And one of them, this dude, I do not recognise his face, but I recognise his voice.
All right, he's called Statesman Geller. I didn't particularly find any IMDb joy from him, but I mean he's just the Council of 12 knob end for this week, isn't he? But he struck me as somebody who was very likely the chair of the local Conservative club.
Oh, Conservative Party.
With his cravat affair.
Oh, yeah. We want to respect this ship as is our right, and it's like, well, you've got to get permission from Adama then. And then Apollo goes nuts again with the scientist. And he says, we've risked these people's lives, we've abducted their ship. And he gets a bit bonkers. And then you have the moment in the classroom where Boxy swears and says, oh, frag.
Yes, which we've always assumed is the F word, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't get told off for that.
No, he doesn't. The thing is, even if... I think Felgakab is supposed to be shit, and frack is fuck.
Yes.
But even if we've got those the wrong way round... It's still a small kid in primary school swearing.
Yeah.
It's just no. You told him off earlier, Athena, for not pressing his buzzer. He didn't buzz in, it doesn't count. Or whatever, but you don't tell him off for swearing.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be allowed on Catchphrase. Swearing. If you don't buzz in, it doesn't count, you see, on catchphrase. You have to press your buzzer.
Right.
Which kind of fits with the whole have to press your question thing. But if this is a quiz show instead of a school, they still wouldn't be allowed to swear.
Right.
Sorry, I found ways of coping.
Okay.
And this was all catchphrase, you see.
Right.
Well, she points them towards the monitor and then tells them to say what they see.
Yeah, this is true.
And so then you have a face-off between Twatty Features and the other police and the Warriors, which is just really stereotypical. It reminds me of the Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode we watched recently where the police don't like the firefighters.
Yeah, and like they're trying to keep them out of the hangar bay, but rather than sort of close the door to the hangar bay, instead they've just got this little chain across the way.
How pathetic is that?
Yeah, that's good crowd control. Well done. I mean, is this not Galactica's hangar bay? Is this not like
it is a military area?
Important military area, and they're just letting these people just crowd in. It doesn't seem right somehow.
No, it's just nuts. But then the whole episode isn't. It gets worse. So then the dude wakes up. Not the dude, but the dude.
Michael.
Yes, not Burnham.
He looks like cosplay Richard Hatch, actually, I think.
He does! He does!
It's a bit of a bizarre casting choice. Let's choose somebody who looks exactly like our leading man.
Yeah.
But maybe they were doing that on purpose. Perhaps he's supposed to represent the Apollo of his people. I don't know, but if so, it's still a strange choice.
It is, yes. Anyway, he's aware of the power drain and understandably wants to investigate it, which is fair enough. And then you get the Council of 12 all being twats. And they're also saying to Adama, no, we're going to tell you to do this. And they say to the doctor, this is what we're going to do. And the doctor says, then you're going to need a new doctor, which I like.
Yes, fantastic moment. That was a mic drop and a half, wasn't it?
It was. I loved it.
And then you get a really good response from Adama as well. It's like, what are you going to do about him, Adama? Well, I'm going to tell him he's been excellent, basically.
Yes.
A pat on the back.
We are a species worth saving. I love it. And then Michael, who's managed to come out of the ship, he's clearly not right. He later collapses. You can see that he isn't right and he's struggling. And he ends up shooting the security twat, which is nice.
He shines his torch at him anyway.
Yeah, well, they did say it's only a stun gun.
It's a torch. Let's face it, that's exactly what he's got in his hand there, is a torch.
Yeah.
Ah, the beam, I can't see.
Blinded by the lights, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night.
Yeah, maybe.
And then they keep talking. This is the first time they do it, and it's Cassiopeia who says it, but it recurs. She talks about, they're just babies. There are no babies. There are children.
Yeah.
There are no babies. They're not babies.
Baby.
Oh. Unless this is another example of their language being weird, like Yara and whatever.
Oh, I suppose you could. Yes, I suppose you could claim that. Just about.
Is a baby a child under 6 for the sake of argument? I don't know. And it turns out that the atmospheric pressure is crushing them. They're used to a lot less pressure. So it's a bit like human beings, never mind how long you can breathe for, we can't survive beyond a certain depth underwater because of the pressure. I
like that. And for a change, we've got some good science as well.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason why they'd be used to the same pressure as on Galactica. So, wow, we've got thumbs up. Wow.
I did like that aspect. And then basically what Apollo is saying is, so they end up in these decompression chambers. And the council of cunts want to keep them there indefinitely. But it's just like, why, what for, how is that going to help anyone? Whereas Apollo says that although they can't adapt to the Galactica's pressure, the crew of the Galactica have got experience working in less pressure. So therefore that it could work the other way around and they could adapt. So they want to put them back on course and follow them to wherever they were going. So then there's this bizarre escapade going on where they have to pretend to get through all the security lines that they're actually going to obey with the orders. It's a means of abducting the decompression chambers and running off with all the patients, which is really...
Yeah, it is a bit weird, isn't it? Although it does have a classic comedy moment where Reese rushes up to have a look at the children in the decompression chambers, discovers they aren't there, and Boober proclaims, "Jolly, you forgot the kids!" Like they've gone on holiday without them or something. Home Alone style.
Yeah.
I do love it. It's not enough Boomer in this story. That's part of the problem, I think.
Yeah, no, I do like it. The council appear and they, and at this point, the ship, they've managed to rescue them all and the ship's taken off. And so the leader of the twats appears and says, what's going on? And he says this to Reese. So Reese says, we had to get rid of the ship. It was a contaminant risk. And it's like, we've got to get after them. Dharma, send some people after them. And he's like, Starbuck and Apollo can go after them then. It's like, that was never his plan in the first place. It's like, why is it always those two? And actually, you do think, don't you, when you're watching it, why is it always those two?
Because they're at the top of the cast list.
Yeah.
Quite possibly.
But what Adama says is, they were ready to go on a routine patrol. And he's like, fair enough then. So they follow them out. And so you end up with Apollo and Starbuck and Cassiopeia on the ship to help them all escape. And they land and meet the dancing droids of fuckery.
Yes, well, up until this point, this is pretty much the first half. So it's kind of alright, it doesn't make a lot of sense at times. Apollo seems to be acting out a character.
He's very weird, Apollo.
But at least we've got some tension within the fleet again, which is kind of interesting. So, it's not half bad, the first half.
And I do like the idea that, yes, they find these humans, but they've got to be careful of contamination.
Yes, and what it turns out to be with the air pressure, that's all good as well.
I like that. I love the scene with the Doctor just telling the council to go fuck themselves. That's brilliant. I love that. So there is good stuff in it.
Yeah, but then, yes, the second half is very much based on the planets. Paradine.
You need to open my beer.
Yeah, I think we need more beer.
Yeah, planet Parody.
Parody, yes. We get our first view of the Eastern Alliance with a big bad. Well, big bad is hardly the right description, is it?
Was it another episode recently where they said people were saying which block are you from?
Yes.
So this is presumably referencing this, I would
Yes.
say.
We get a new ship design, which is something. And it's not too bad a model. As you said at the time, it's a bit Klingon-y. It's got a long neck.
Yeah.
Which connects the ship to the bridge module. But sadly, the occupants are just space Nazis. Complete with black uniforms, ranks like Commandant.
And German accents.
And semi-German accents, yes. We meet Commandant Leitner. Yeah. Yes, he's played by Lloyd Bochner, who was in Naked Gun 2.5, The A-Team, and Manimal. And I'm going to refer to him as Hairflick for the rest of this story.
Yeah.
And Krebs, who's played by Kurt Lowens, who was an old one in Crusade, Varn, the Guardian of the Great Machine in Babylon 5, and, you've guessed it, also in the A-Team as well.
Yeah.
And he may as well be Lieutenant Gruber. He's wearing one of those daft helmets from Spaceballs. It's not a good look.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's a shame we've already used the Hello Hello theme, really, but there we go. We're into space Nazis. Suddenly we've forgotten about the Cylons, and these are the baddies, except, really, they don't work out very well. They spot the Vipers on their way to Paradine, so they set a course. On the colony, we do indeed meet Hector and Vector, two androids with the most bizarrely designed faces. I really don't know what they were getting at with those, and crappy modulated voices.
Oh, it's just... Yeah.
Yeah, Hector's played by Bobby Van. He did musicals like Kiss Me Kate, just as musicals were going out of fashion.
Right.
Yeah. And Vector is played by Ray Bolger. Or Bolger, not sure which. It was the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz.
I thought I recognised him.
Yeah. He's got a very limited IMDb page, though. That's definitely his biggest role. They could possibly be the world's most stupid robots. They're just rubbish. I mean, why would anybody build robots, A, that look like this, and B, that behave like this?
Oh. And they forgot to do the fucking homing beacon thing.
Yeah. They're all kinds of incompetent. They're driving a pair of knockoff Star Wars land speeders. They reveal that apparently hostilities had broken out on Paradine at some point. Sarah can't find her father, but then she finds his tombstone. And, you've got a moment of, oh, my gosh, my father's dead, and then the robots are joking about not having the parts to build a female robot.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, we're not doing tone anymore, guys? It's a bit weird. Inside the house, which is completely done out in shades of brown.
Oh, really? And the carpet.
It looks like the same carpet that's in Adama's room, but combined with the brown walls and the brown furniture, it's just... Oh, it looks like somebody just crapped themselves in this room.
But also, it's really fluffy, luxuriant carpet. Like, this is, they're all like sort of poor farmers type people, except they've got really luxurious carpets.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck?
The droids go to present a laser disc. Yes, it looks just like a laser disc. I know
it does.
With pictures of Terra on it, but Sarah's anti-tech apparently, so she doesn't want to know.
Oh, why doesn't she die?
She's anti-tech, but she's flying in a spaceship.
I hate anti-tech people. Why isn't she
but
dead?
she's not exactly a particularly good anti-tech person, considering she's willing to use a spaceship.
But that's what they're usually like, though.
To cheer everyone up, the droids do a song and dance routine.
Oh, don't. This is fucking terrible.
What? Hey? And it's just sheer padding. It's rubbish.
It's utterly... gobshite.
Then they admit they haven't destroyed the homing device, so the space Nazis are on their way.
Yeah, because the song and dance was more important, you see.
Yeah. Sarah does a runner, followed by the girls. I presume this is the moment when she goes out and destroys the controls of the Vipers.
Yeah.
But quite why the girls follow on, and we don't hear anything more about that, I don't know.
No.
We get some shots of Herr Flick on the SS Bismarck, or whatever it's called. It's a tiny, tiny set, which will play out later on, I guess. Sarah takes Apollo aside and tells him that she doesn't love Michael. It's some sort of arranged marriage, apparently her father was attempting here. She wants Apollo to stay with her instead, this guy that she's just met. And previously they were petrified with trying to kill them. Eh?
Oh, damn.
What?
Oh.
And then she sounds really creepy, telling him she can make him stay. Like,
oh. No, that was just earworm with Shakespeare's
yes,
sister.
funny enough.
Yeah.
No, was that Shakespeare's sister? No, because I'd gone with an even worse song. Who was that?
I don't know.
That was some rubbish person, wasn't it? I'll dig that one out as well. Starbuck's found a city. Yeah, he's been off screen for ages and then suddenly turns up saying he's found it. He really doesn't get much to do in this story.
Not really.
Other than get lost later on. Its population has apparently been neutron bombed out of existence by the Alliance. And we get a shot of Michael with an airplane flying behind him.
I know it's clearly not supposed to be there.
Quality! Apollo tells Cass to get close to Michael as he's suspicious of him. And when they walk off arm in arm with her saying she's available. Nice, subtle. Sarah looks on enviously, but I thought she didn't love him. What's going on here? We see the destroyed city, which is one of the good bits about this story, because it's absolutely fantastic. Bit of location filming here. Filmed in the World Expo of 1967, based in Montreal. And just over the course of a few years, the harsh Canadian winter has reduced it to these ruins. It's really atmospheric. And will crop up again in Buck Rogers.
Oh!
And Quantum Leap, apparently.
Oh.
And you can tell it's filmed in Canada because Starbuck's nose is bright red. And you can see all their breath coming out. We get a load of, well, why can't humans be nice? Which is admittedly hard to argue with, but it's hardly subtle either.
Yeah.
We meet the Morlands, because it's kind of going over to Western Planet again at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And they sound like they should be in their own naff sitcom. Aggie Morland. Aggie, there's a United Statesian name.
What is it short for?
Maggie, presumably. They've chopped all of one letter off to shorten it, but I presume...
No, is it short for Agatha?
Oh, I suppose it could be. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? Okay, yep. She's played by Leslie Woods, another A-Team stalwart. Josh Morland, he's Frank Marth. Guess which show he's been in as well?
That A-Team?
Yeah, and Manimal. And the other dude's Doyle, who apparently has been in nothing. They tell Apollo and the others to get the hell out of Dodge. Todd discovers Starbuck's Viper has been trashed. And if they're trying to make you think it's the Morlands, that just doesn't work, because you just damn well know who this was, don't you? Hector turns up and tells them Starbuck is lost in the archives. Sarah fesses up to destroying the ships to make Apollo stay. The Bismarck lands at the farm, not that you get to see that happen. Cheap. Flick interrogates Sarah, although it's really badly edited. I don't know whether there's supposed to be some threat of torture here or something. He stands by the fire at one point and makes some comment about it, but they don't show anything, possibly because they're going with the kiddies' TV approach here, but yeah. The kids run away. They go to the Morlands and melt Aggie's heart suddenly. She was kind of anti-kids before, and now she's suddenly all for them. So that's a sudden and convenient change. Apollo and co find Starbuck, and the Morlands arrive to show them the quick way back to the surface, so they can all survive. They take out the Nazis really, really easily, sliding down a roof at one point. Okay. And Sarah asks Michael about our children, so that's a sudden conversion for her, isn't it? Mm. Oh, and the Morlands are suddenly really friendly. Weird. Meanwhile, Apollo and Starbuck guide the tiny Bismarck into the Galacta's launch bay. And that's the end of their threat. Wow. Bring back the silence, for frack's sake. Ugh.
Yeah. And also, just the whole thing about... So, she's, like, weird as fuck, tries to trap Apollo,
but then...
smashes up the equipment, and then Michael's all, yay, you like me now.
Yeah, she suddenly...
Why is he not like, fuck, I was nearly
Psycho
you.
Vince, run away!
Yes!
Yes, quite. Because the problem with this episode is that none of these characters are properly sketched out. They're all so transparent you can see the planes flying behind them, literally at one point. It's appalling. I mean, this is really an obvious rush job. And as for Vector and Hector, somebody let's do R2-D2 and C-3PO, but let's make them really, really annoying, and they can do a dance routine. I mean, they're straight out of the Star Wars Holiday Special, those two, aren't they?
Yeah.
Wow. What so the first half, okay. Second half, just flush the concepts down the toilets.
Terrible.
Have some crappy space Nazis that turn out to be flying the world's smallest ship. And therefore no threat whatsoever. Wow. That was worth a double episode.
No.
Possibly this could have signed the death warrant for Battlestar Galactica, I can't help feeling, because wow, the paucity of ideas at this point.
But also somebody who was thinking, do I renew this or not? And they turn it on and they see Derpy and Lurpy or whatever the fuck they're called. It's just...
What are we doing here? I mean, really, Galloping Galaxies springs to mind of those two. There was a pair of comedy awful Irish robots in Galloping Galaxies. Oh, man, they were really terrible, but they weren't as bad as Derpy and Herpy or whatever they're called, Extra Vector. Oh. Anyways, let's see if other people like this, because, quite often we get this strange inverse thing happening.
We do. We had... What was it we had fun with recently and nobody else liked it?
Yeah, well, you quite like the
Fred Astaire one.
Fred Astaire one, yes. That everybody else hated. Let's see.
Let's see, yes. We've heard from Doreen, who writes, well, a fair amount happened in this one. A lot of the science seems very iffy nowadays. It seemed very strange that humans from Terra could understand the Galactica crew.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure they haven't mentioned having the equivalent of universal translators.
Well, no, in the past we've had the Languatron.
Yeah.
Because that's what helped them understand the Ovions. But there's no use of it here. No, everybody's speaking perfectly English here. But then I suppose that kind of makes sense if they are from an Earth colony. But I don't quite know where these guys fit in. I mean, it would never. Nothing's explained by the end.
No. I did not like that Apollo tried to make Sarah wake up to her feelings by making Cassiopeia cosy up with Michael. I didn't feel the women were treated very well in this one.
Well, no, to be honest, the men aren't treated brilliantly, but the women certainly not. Yeah, It's just all rubbish.
The political infighting wasn't well written or executed.
No.
But was relatively interesting. And I wasn't sure of the outcome from the beginning. Apollo was very passionate and principled in this one.
Well, it's certainly very passionate, but it seemed over the top to me.
Very much, yeah. At the beginning, there was way too much Boxy, and I really wanted to face-palm Athena when she took Boxy to Apollo, leaving the rest of the class alone, to reassure him after he's heard Starbuck argue with Apollo, only to have the same argument with Apollo in front of Boxy.
Yes.
Hello, Athena. Do you remember why you did this? Good point.
Yeah. Thank you, Dory.
Thank you.
We've heard from Jeff. Greetings from Iowa, he says. Oh,
isn't that where Kirk?
Exactly, yes. Well, this episode started somewhat interestingly. Finding a seemingly derelict spacecraft adrift containing passengers in suspended animation is a pretty hoary sci-fi trope. You can usually find all kinds of interesting adventures. Genetically engineered supermen, country and western singers, silent killers dressed in leather harnesses, even Christopher Lee in a crazy wig. Unfortunately, we get Randolph Mantooth and a bunch of kids. Randolph Mantooth, Randolph Mantooth was in a 70s show about paramedics and firefighters called Emergency! It's got a thingy after it. That I enjoy, and he was pretty good on that. But he is not convincing or compelling in this episode. No, he does nothing convincing in this. Kelly Harmon's Sarah is even worse. Plus she gets written as incredibly petty and plain stupid. And bloody weird. Yeah. Like War of the Gods, this feels like enough material for a single episode stretched out to cover 2 hours. Not even sure it qualified as that, to be honest.
No.
There was a warning about terrible robots, and you weren't kidding. Yes, I did remember them. I did not expect a comedy vaudeville duo complete with a song and dance number. They did get another classical Hollywood coup with Ray's Scarecrow Bulger, though why, I'm not sure. just why.
Yeah.
I did like the first part of the story, which admittedly is the better half, yes, where for once the characters were actually discussing the ethics in interfering with the sleepers they found. The political wrangling and civilian police force versus military warriors could have been pretty interesting. Boomer had my favourite line, when their deception was uncovered and immediately threw Jolly under the bus.
Yeah.
Which would be a pretty believable excuse. The Easter Alliance, I don't know if you meant that or rather Eastern, but Easter is very seasonal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to be honest, they're about as threatening as a chocolate egg, aren't they? Their spaceship looked pretty cool too. Yeah, from the outside. Thanks again for the fun podcast. I cheated and watched the preview of the next episode, so it looks like next time will be much more fun, and I look forward to listening. Oh, well, you're ahead of us then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff. Great to hear from you.
And we've heard from Ol.
Hello, Peter and Anne-Marie. It's Ol here. Sorry for the break last time. I kind of felt I didn't have much to say about those 2 episodes. They were just sort of things that happened. They didn't really feel that they had any great significance, and I didn't think I was going to be adding much by feeding back. Also, I couldn't be bothered. But this time, I've just watched Greetings from Earth, which I think it is an interesting pair of episodes, although it's technically a 2-parter, but it's 2 really separate bits of story. The version I've got is all in one episode, so I just watched the whole thing all the way through. But the episode break in the middle is fairly easy to figure out where it must go, because there's very much a game of 2 halves going on here. The first half is, well, if Ron Moore didn't watch this before writing his version of Battlestar Galactica, then I don't know what he did watch, because the whole setup of this episode is about the military versus the political wings of the fleet, and how that power struggle plays out. Now, it's done mostly for comedy here, with the civilian authority being basically a bunch of jerks who don't really know what's going on, and the military running rings round them and being clever. So the story of finding this thing in space and bringing it on board, it's almost like something out of Blake 7. It used to happen all the time to them. Although, in this case, nobody tries to kill anyone, so, not quite Blake 7. Yeah, it's people in suspended animation. I mean, so far, so science fiction tropey. And then it turns out that the people live in 1/5 normal Earth, or normal Capricorn air pressure, which seems a bit unlikely. I don't know what the sort of the limits of human endurance are, but I suspect you'd feel pretty poorly if 4/5 of your air was taken away. But anyway, whatever. There's the people in suspended animation, and there is a genuine moral quandary about whether or not they should be reawakened or whether they should just be left alone by the crew of the Galactica. That's done really well. It's played out really nicely, with different characters taking different sides, and they explain why they're taking the side they are. It's almost a Star Trek episode in the way that the sides are presented, and it's all made understandable by the audience. We get some cutesy school scenes with Boxy, and it turns out that that's where Athena's been all this time. She's been teaching in the school because shut up, that's why, presumably. But yeah, it's all good, that. And then the quorum of the 12, or the council of the 12, that seems to have, the quorum seems to have disappeared. That they decide that the people should be woken up, and Apollo wants them to be left alone, and they eventually decide that they're going to help them escape, and they as I say, run rings around the local civilian security forces. Top line from Boomer: "Jolly, you forgot to put the kid in there." To be honest, I think wins the episode. And then we disappear off to the planet Paradine, where, I don't know, after the excitement and political interest of the last episode, it just sort of drops off for me. I didn't like this one anywhere near as much. We get introduced to our new baddies. The Cylons are old hat, so we get new baddies, and you can tell they're baddies because they're dressed as Nazis. And they're flying around in rather a nice spaceship. We've got new model shots for the first time in God knows how long. And it's a really nice, dagger shape with, well, maybe an arrowhead shape. But yeah, I like it. I'd mosey around in one of those. It's quite nice. Obviously, you need to be a fascist to drive it, so maybe not. But, even fascists have the old, good aesthetic choice. And there's a lot of them flying around and deciding to fly to Paradine and not really just talking about going there and not doing anything. But we are constantly reminded that they're there and they are the new baddies. Apollo lands with the people from the spaceship, so does Starbuck for that matter. They meet a pair of comedy robots, fucking Hector and Vector. Yeah, I'm just not going to speak about Hector and Vector. They're there. Get over it, I guess. Ugh. And then they realise there's a city on the planet, and all the people in the city have been wiped out, and Starbuck gets lost in the city, and there's a bit of jeopardy as they decide to go and find him, and they do find him, and everyone's happy. Sarah tries to seduce Apollo and does the whole thing of being a lunatic and trying to break his ship in order to force him to say so that she can seduce him, because that's not going to work. But it's not even the first time we've had that in this series. You know, we did the space western early on, which was pretty much, well, I've got a load of fuel, but you can't have it because, you know, I might get my end away with you. And yeah, it's equally weird here. And I don't know what they were thinking, but it is what it is. And then the Eastern Alliance, they're Nazis, but they're from Russia. Just get that round your head. They turn up and they're fascist thugs. You know, they are what they are. And then our heroes get a one-over on them and steal their spaceship and drive it back to the Galactica, which frightens the life out of them, and that's the end of our episode. Which, yeah, I don't know. The fascist thugs aren't really shiny robots, so I'm not that fussed, I'll be honest. But we'll see where we go. I seem to remember that we've got a few episodes with these guys before the end of the series, which is coming up very soon, isn't it? So we'll see how we go with it. Thank you very much for the podcast. I always enjoy it, and I look forward to listening to your thoughts on these pair of episodes. For now, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, are they the new baddies?
Oh, I hope not. I really don't. I can't remember them turning up again, but it has been a little while since we rewatched these. Yeah.
Oh, because they're just rubbish. Because you know they're rubbish from the get-go.
Yeah, they've been set up as rubbish. I mean,
how does that work?
Yeah. And the writers have clearly never met a woman, I've come to the conclusion.
Yeah.
I think that's the only explain the appalling writing that's going on here.
Oh.
The sound you made when talking about Hector and Vector.
Yes. Yeah. And just... Oh.
But again, first half much better, and
yeah.
It's not just military and political like in BSG, but also the scientists seem to be a separate cast as well. And then even they aren't agreeing with one another, so it's kind of interesting. Everybody seems to be fighting their own corner in this, which is interesting.
Yes, there are interesting things in the first half.
Yes.
Who else have we heard from?
We've heard from the Llama God.
Right then, we've got another two-parter here. Now, the question is, will this follow the tradition of the standalone episodes of Battlestar Galactica being not quite as good, and the two-parters being standout excellent? Well, before I pass judgment on this, something interesting that's come to light recently, and I don't know if anyone's seen this on the Twitters, I'm sure that all will mention this as well in the podcast, if necessary. Something that came to light was a load of blogs that were written by some of the co-writers, showrunners, staff writers, whatever, from Galactica 80. And although that's very interesting read in and of itself, and that will become more relevant when we get that far into the series, one of the things they speak about is how Glenn Larson, when he's confronted with not having a script, he'll just start writing and see where it goes. And if he writes too much, he'll just write end of part 1 and then start writing part 2, which seems like a very unstructured way of doing things, but, you know, if it works. And that really seems like where this pair of episode comes from, because it's really much a rambling thing that starts off in one place, doesn't really know where it's going, and ends up, well, does it end up where it wants to end up? No, really, he kind of just runs out of ink and paper, and he just stops. So, yeah, to answer the question, is this as good as the previous two-parters? No, not by a long shot. And I complained last time about how the episode with Starbuck's dad was slow and nothing much happened. Oh boy, did I not know what I was getting myself in for, because this has got probably an episode's worth of material, if that, in 2 episodes. And wow, to saying it's stretched does it something of disservice. Yeah. And in theory, it's an interesting concept. We have Starbuck and Apollo coming across Buck Rogers in the EasyJet space shuttle and then taking back to the fleet. They're very quick to jump to the conclusion that this must be Earth, it's humans, this must be Earth. I mean, they don't seem to do that to every other colony that they come across, although they're starting to become that way now that they're chasing the path from the lights in the sky. But fair enough, it's what the quest is all about, so I guess they're going to question whether anyone they meet is going to be part of their goal. And then there's a whole load of tedious stuff with various factions on board the Galactica arguing about whether they should actually revive the human beings things or not. And it goes backwards and forwards a lot. And I guess there's some interesting drama to be made out of this, and it's exactly the kind of thing that Star Trek would have done. What's more important, the well-being of a handful of people or the survival of the entire fleet? And yeah, this is exactly the kind of situation that Star Trek would have rung a lot of drama out of. Unfortunately, they just don't seem to make the best of it here. And in terms of B-plots, we've got a classroom full of kids learning about these issues, with Boxley being annoying. Given he's surrounded by a whole class full of kids, that's quite an achievement to stand out like that. And we also have Athena. For some reason, Athena is now the headmistress, because I'm guessing because she's a woman, and that's what women do. They teach. So, yeah, not so good on progressiveness. To be fair, they talk about germs and infections, and yeah, those are real-world issues, and that's, I guess, interesting to know. And there's a lot of tension rolled around when they finally do crack open the sleeping tubes, and we ultimately find out they can't survive, and yeah, that's all very interesting. I guess it could be, but it's just not played in a very interesting way. So, ultimately, the whole exercise proves to be futile when they just send them on their merry way again, and then that's kind of all we hear about that strand of the storyline. There's some speak of the fact that Adama's going to have to face an inquiry from the rest of the Council of 12, but if that happens, it doesn't happen in this episode, because we very soon forget about that side of things, and I imagine so did Glenn Larson, so hey-ho. In what I'm guessing is the second part, isn't quite a clear break between the two episodes, but I'm assuming that everything on the Galactica was episode 1, everything else was episode 2. We follow the space family Robinson on the way to the colony, and at the same time uncover more of the mystery of who they are and where they came from. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, that's not that interesting either. It's an interesting setup when we do get to the colony, although we land on what is apparently an unpopulated planet, and there is the slight tragedy of the father being dead. Ultimately, that doesn't play a lot into the story, and although there's mystery after mystery on the planet, we get the other farmers, and then we get the discovery there's a whole city there. What I am interested in is where they actually filmed this, because this looks quite interesting, and I'm sure you will have covered this at some point already if you haven't, Bad Orcs. But obviously they filmed it somewhere that was deserted. It looks like one of those sort of future Expos World Fair sort of thing. So, I mean, there's definitely a good choice of location, although there's a hilarious shot when Starbuck and one of the other characters, I'll get to that in just a moment, arrives at the city. The camera is literally shooting them from like the chin up. All we can see is the very tops of the buildings, and we can't see that all around us is obviously, I guess, just a standard earthbound city, because that would look crap. So there's some very, very strange camera work there, but hey-ho. Back to the awful. The colony has 2 robots, and calling them robots is a bit of a stretch. They have to have constant dialogue that reminds us that they are in fact robots, because the makeup is absolutely atrocious. We're like Tin Man in the Wizard of Oz kind of level here. At least that had the excuse of being A, made decades before this, and B, it's kind of fantastical. That was the kind of look they were going for anyway. These are just awful. They're a dodgy comedy sidekick routine. They do a song and dance number. It's atrocious. I hated every second that they were on screen. But at least there's some excitement, because they're being followed by space Nazis, as we discover that the situation back on their home planet is there's a war between the West and the East. Whatever could this be an allegory for? I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. But just in case, there's space Nazis on a space submarine, and I mean, guess the spaceship could be an interesting design, but really, the model work is atrocious. You can see the wires at some of the points. I mean, maybe this is an artifact of it being upscaled to DVD. I mean, that's not as much as upscaling to Blu-ray, but the model work there is shocking, and that's unfortunate, because one of the areas where Battlestar Galactica has shone in the past has been in its use of brilliantly directed model work. I mean, sure, we get a lot of stock footage, but it's very good stock footage. But I guess there are no other suitable sci-fi films to steal from. You're going to tell me this was stolen from another sci-fi film, aren't you? Which is why it looks shoddy. I bet that was actually the reason. But hey, yeah, it just looks shoddy. And the plot with the Nazis just seems to go nowhere. And meanwhile, in another example of wonderful equality and progressiveness, the story of the one woman on the sleeper ship, Sarah, her story seems to be about who she's going to choose to be a mate, with her wrecking the Vipers so that Apollo can't leave, and then Apollo and Starbuck having to use Cassiopeia to make Sarah jealous when she thinks that Cassiopeia is hitting on Michael. That's also just awful. I mean, I guess it's we're trying to repopulate a whole planet here. Who must I mate with? But honestly, this is not an episode where any of the female characters are being dealt with particularly well. And eventually the space Nazis arrive, and at this point in my notes, I've got written down, the colony has a really awful carpet that's just terrible, and my god, I'm bored. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. There was the potential for a lot of high stakes and interesting adventure here, but when you have the space Nazis arrive and they're being chased off by gardeners and badly made up robots, I mean, this was just, I hate to come across as being particularly negative, although I've just spent the last few minutes doing so, but there really wasn't anything in this episode that would convince me in any way to recommend this to anybody else. So hopefully, though, as is often the case with these things, hopefully someone else listening will have enjoyed these, and I'm looking forward to hearing that, and I'm looking forward to hearing what other people will have made of this as well. As seems to be the case in times like this, the majority of my enjoyment will come from listening to everyone else's feedback and your wonderful podcast. And until next time, I'll go somewhere else and be miserable about something else instead. And so say, well, me.
I love your phrase, EasyJet space shuttle. That was an EasyJet space shuttle,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
And I've just discovered it, yes, that the Eastern Alliance do return.
Oh.
Oh, good.
Whoop-de-doo. It's interesting that he said that the effing and jeffing, or whatever the fuck their names were, look like the Tin Man, because of course one of them is played by Scarecrow.
Yeah. Yes, and you're quite right, it was filmed in an expo, so that explains that. And yes, there are an awful pointing up at the ceiling shots to cover up the fact that, yes, they want to see the other sites of the city.
They are terrible robots. They are just awful and wrong. And the women are terribly badly written. It's shit.
Yeah, and who's the writer? Looked it up. Glennie Larson. So yes, completely. Yeah. Oh, I've overrun. I better do a second part, and let's just make it end here, shall we? Yes.
Yeah.
Bizarrely, they actually did a model kit of that. I've just discovered. Fantastic plastic. Eastern Alliance Stasi class destroyer. Stasi class.
Wow. The Stasi class.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. It has got no reviews whatsoever, and I can't find anything else about it. Wow. It was released 2011.
Gosh.
Yeah. 21 pieces. 13 inches long, so full scale then.
Gosh.
Yeah, right. I think it was just built with model parts they got lying around by the looks of it. But
yeah, kit bash.
Yeah. Right, thank you, Mr. Lamagard. But, yes, I can't see anybody else liking this, but let's find out if Drew and Tracy did.
So that was Greetings from Earth.
Yes.
That was a fucking hard watch, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh my god. Right, so let's get to the point where they find I'm going to say the family. They're not the family, are they?
Family, yeah.
Yeah. So man comes out of stasis.
Yeah.
He's instantly able to walk.
Yeah.
Right? No ill effects whatsoever. I would have been throwing up like no one's business.
And want to go away.
And this is the point. He didn't. The first thing he didn't say when he kind of woke up was, "I'm breaking my fucking neck."
I've got 6 months of piss in me.
I would have been absolutely busting. I wouldn't have been doing anything but like trying to find a loo.
Yeah.
But he's like, "Oh yeah, whatever, all coiffured hair." Yeah. Can stand up and walk instantly. I'd have been like on my knees.
Yep.
How long were they in stasis?
I don't know. I like the decon door to the space shuttle had a normal like front room handle on it.
Yeah, you said that. I missed that, but you did say that's a bloody handle on the front door. Hector and Vector.
Why design robots and go?
Fuck.
We need to make them look like twats, and even worse, sound like twats.
A cross between the Tin Man and the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. That is exactly what they did look like, and they sounded like that as well.
And when Vector said, "Oh no, I can't tell you what's happened to your dad. Let me just show you." And takes him to the grave. It's like, can you imagine that? Like the police come round, like, "I've got some bad news here, but I'm afraid we're not going to tell you. Let's just take you straight into the morgue.
Yeah.
Look!
Here's his body. Yeah, nice.
It's like, that was really terrible.
Yeah, but they're not humans, are they? They've got no emotion, no feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful. And also, so just like, instead of telling her they're taken to the grave of the dad, and then 5 minutes later, let's do a song and dance for you. It's like,
yeah, and everyone's sitting around
clapping.
Like, yeah, whatever. You just found out your dad's dead, love.
And now we're going to do a song and dance.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter.
The episode took a torrential nosedive. It wasn't high anyway, but this is where it got really bad.
The first 45 minutes was alright. It was doable. And then the last 45 minutes was just like...
awful.
What the fuck? To the point, Starbuck is now trapped in the maze, right?
Yeah.
So Hector comes back and says, "Oh no, Apollo ran off and he's got no oxygen." So they're all like, "I think we should go and find him." Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Go and get him. And like, he's been without oxygen for like an hour, and he's just got a bit of a mild sweat on. Why is his eyes not bulging out of his face?
I know.
You know, I would have been like, I'd have had half a lung
like
at
Arnie
that
Schwarzenegger
point.
at the end of Total Recall, wouldn't they?
I would have had like half a lung at that point, and then like the next 5 minutes, he's perfectly fine. He's got his tan back on, and he's like looking all groovy. I'd have been like on the floor in like a heat for about 2 hours.
The space Nazis.
What the fuck?
It was a
that?
total moment. It was a total "Are we the baddies" moment, wasn't it? It was just like they was all dressed in black, leather gloves. The subordinates had like big black like Spaceballs helmets on.
Yeah, exactly. Spaceballs helmets.
Like black glasses. I mean, I was really thinking, I wonder if they're going to do like some kind of twist here. And it turns out that they're the Eastern Alliance are actually the goodies, and the ones that we've been with all the time end up being the baddies. But no, that's a bit too subtle, isn't it?
I think if
for
you've got
this?
a big black helmet going on there, you are a
But
baddie.
that would have been good if it had done a twist, but no chance. They actually weren't space Nazis.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when they're all tied to the vehicles and they take them off, and they're just such and all like the kids are waving at them, goodbye
Nazis, goodbye. You were like, they're fucking waving at Nazis.
Yeah.
This just didn't do nothing for me. The last, as I say, the 45 minutes at the end was just like, I can't even be dealing with this.
This was genuinely awful.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think this is the worst episode.
When Hector and Vector came on, I just looked at you and I was like...
It was the worst episode.
It's almost like someone had just come off a night shift of being on fairy dust or something.
I know!
And then wrote this.
Oh, it's terrible.
It was just horrendous. Please, no fucking more of this.
No,
shit.
Definitely.
Leave it there.
Okay.
Take it easy. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. We're so sorry. It is awful.
It really is bad. Yeah, we're not going to try and
We haven't
clean.
even got to Galactica 1980 yet.
Is that worse than
Its
Hector
reputation
and
is that
Vector?
it's worse than the first series of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, but is it worse than Wanky and Spanky, whatever they're
I
called?
don't know. But it does stretch the imagination how it could be. I mean, certainly the pilot isn't, but I haven't seen any of the rest yet. I suppose it depends how much is actually written by Glenn A. Larson. But there we are.
Yeah, when he decided he'd run out of ideas.
Yeah. Well, he wrote the pilot, and he did a good job of that, and he likewise for 1980. So he seems to be good at, sort of coming up with these concepts and doing an initial story, and then it all goes to pot after that. But anyway.
Oh, whose idea were the twatty robots of wrong?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. It is not good.
No, sorry. It is terrible. And you're right about the no ill effects of stasis. Like, he has ill effects from the pressure, but wouldn't he be groggy? In terms of needing a wee, I think he's just got a space nappy.
Nice. He just went before he went to sleep, obviously.
He's still going to wake up with a full bladder.
No, not if he's not drunk during the freezing process.
Is
It's
it
fine.
frozen his wee?
Well, if he's had a wee before he's gone in... I can't believe we're discussing this, but,
But I have a wee before I go to sleep and I wake up needing a wee in the morning.
Right, okay. I don't know, I'm not an expert on bladders. I never claimed to be. Find someone else to answer your bladder-related questions. Meanwhile, we'll find out what Purry made of this.
Hello, orcs. Purry here to talk about Greetings from Earth. Parts 1 and 2, like you, my DVD, just bundled it onto one episode, so I will bundle it all into one file, hopefully not going on too much. So, yeah, I remember this not being that bad. Memory's a funny thing. I think the thing is that I've got a feeling I actually remember this possibly being bundled with at least the next episode, which it wasn't. So this really felt padded. Now, I think one of the things that I liked about it when I first saw it, and indeed where memory maybe fooled me, was the Eastern Alliance, or shall we call them what they are, the Space Nazis. Their ship was kind of being bigged up through the whole thing. And I remember there being a lot more kind of promotion of them, and that ship was really powerful, and it was kind of building it up to be something quite scary. And then, the last shot we get is of it being able to land in the Galactica's landing bay, and it's it's the space fleet that, due to a miscalculation of scale, gets eaten by a small dog. I thought that was quite a good idea, but actually watching the episode now, that doesn't happen at all. So really the last 30 seconds of this were a bit pointless. Watching it, no, they do, because they talk about it landing, and it's very obvious. They make a lot of comments about the fact that the Galactica stuff's much higher tech, which I think is a shame. I like the idea of building up a baddie only to knock them down, particularly for kind of it's not a one and gun. I think there's at least another part with these guys. They might actually make it to the end of the season. And I wonder if this was the idea. I suppose we'll find out in the last 2 episodes. If the idea was to have a kind of new villain, so it wasn't just Cylons we were dealing with, that it was this Eastern Alliance, Northern Alliance, I can't remember what they're called, Eastern Alliance I'm going to call them, Space Nazis, if it was going to be Space Nazis as the baddie. Now, basically I found this quite slow. It was very padded. A lot of Apollo earnestly shouting at people. So I get his idea, but, when they picked up that ship, wasn't it kind of adrift? So, not like going somewhere with purpose, like drifting. But I did like the idea of the discussion on, no, we shouldn't open these cases because we could be giving them diseases, they could give us diseases, this has to be strictly quarantined, and the fleet, as normal, go completely apeshit and ruin everything. Who was that moustached guy who was in it, brought in for the episode's villainy, and you can see the minute he turns up and he's in shot, it's like, oh god, you're going to be an antagonist, aren't you? So it wasn't subtly done. But I mean, when the story moved, it did interesting stuff. The problem was that we spent ages. The initial discussions were good, but we kept having them, and Apollo saying we should set them back on their way, we have no right to them. And indeed, there did seem to start getting a bit scary with no, we must interrogate them as to the position of Earth. Once again, of course, when, like in basically what I assume was part 2, when they're actually down on the planet. And indeed, it's the abandoned city idea was quite good. It was a planet that had been nuked, and that they were trying to repopulate, but it was, sparsely populated, and the Eastern Alliance or Space Nazis weren't going near it for the moment. That I thought was quite a neat idea. And, using it must have been an abandoned city or filming first thing in the morning, but it looks suitably apocalyptic. But again, the problem is that in between that we have terrible and annoying robots, Hector and Vector, prancing about. We've got once again Apollo apparently being the ideal partner, the one all the widows love. Dead husband, children. You want Apollo, don't you? I don't know why. Well, but he clearly has something that every woman who's attracted to has: a dead husband and children, or a child or children. So that's a bit of a weird thing. And indeed, Apollo then tries to get Cassiopeia to make her jealous. I actually thought she was going to get stabby. She was looking quite psychotic for a bit. But she was. And again, these are kind of plots that sort of arise and then stop. So she says she loves Apollo, and then Apollo tries to make her jealous, and then she admits to smashing up the Vipers. Who smashed up the Vipers? It was me. Alright, okay, that plot's done. So they kind of resolved some plots really quickly and easily, while they just let other stuff, particularly that first sort of section of it really drags. It drags on for each. And Boxy, I'm assuming, I know it's a school, but I assume they call it a Learnatron or something. They didn't actually name it. And alright, apparently, what's her name? Apollo's daughter is also a school teacher now, so as well as her important job on the bridge as an officer of the Galactica, she's also a teacher. There you go. Wonder if Omega does that as well. I bet he does. He does telly as well, so yeah, I suppose that would happen. So yeah, overall, I felt this was really padded out. I reckon there was definitely, if you cut it down to an episode, it would be very solid, but probably a bit rushed. I reckon there was an episode and a bit here. I wonder, and I'm still going to contemplate this, when we look at the second part, will we actually see that, no, out of the 3 episodes, there was maybe 2 episodes in it, and they just needed to bulk out the season a bit, to stretch things a bit further. We won't know. Last thing to talk about before I go is, I did like the designs. I liked the space Nazi ship, and I liked the shuttle. I also liked the fact that all of them had human names, so it's definitely giving the hints that this Terra could be Earth, or although it could also be Holy Terra, and we are in fact going into the Imperium, which does actually kind of fit. So just 2 episodes to go. I have ordered my DVD box set of Galactica 1980 because apparently I hate myself. All that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I hope to feedback for the next parts. Until then, bye for now.
Bye! You hate yourself, or you probably will hate us quite quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
You're right that Apollo was shouting earnestly a lot.
Yes, that was his role, basically.
Yes. And at the moment the guy walks in, as you said, he's an obvious antagonist, isn't he?
Yeah, Reese's Pieces, yes.
Yeah. And
it's not subtle, definitely not.
It's just terrible.
Ironic that, yes, bigging up the spaceship that turns out to be very small.
Very small.
Nice Hitchhiker's reference.
Yes. And do you think Omega is taking turns in the school?
I believe he teaches home ec.
Yeah. Okay.
Nicely spotted that they got human names. They also use human measurements as well.
Yeah.
Time and distance, and they don't understand Yarans and Centons.
Yeah.
So yes, there is that sense that they're getting closer to Earth at least.
Yes, that's true, because they used minutes at one point.
Yeah. But yes, I think the only body... and I did remember reading that they decided that Cylons were crap.
What?
I know. Because they kept getting defeated. This is an effort to find some new competent bad guys.
Whose ship's really tiny and fits in the landing
Well
bay.
written, guys. Well written.
Well done.
Yes.
Bit of an own goal there.
Yeah, yes. About the only person who comes out of this with any sort of credit is the location scout, to be honest, who found Expo.
That Expo is awesome. Yeah.
Well, as we listen to the deafening sounds of our dog snoring, which says all you need to be said about Greetings from Earth, really. Well, thank you to everybody who's fed back.
Thank you.
And next time we shall be covering, which, reading between the lines, apparently, also features the Eastern Alliance. Oh, goody. Is Baltar's Escape. But at least that's got to feature somebody good, hasn't it? Baltar's Escape.
Yeah.
And the other episode is Experiment in Terra. Terra spelt like Earth. Ooh, juicy. So, getting there.
Are they the last ones then, or not?
No, we have 2 more to go after that.
Okay.
Take the Celestra, which I seem to remember being quite good, and was one of those that they kind of redid in BSG. And the Hand of God. So we've got a Maradona one in that one. But anyway, that's not till the end of May. Our next episode covering Baltar's Escape and Experiment in Terra is the 17th of May. Ooh. We shall catch you then. Cheery bye, your leave.
Cheery bye, your leave.
Blinded by the lights, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night. Blinded by the lights, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night. Blinded by the lights, wrapped up like
The music at the beginning of this podcast was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
All other music is used for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
The artwork for Borgcast Galactica was created by Lee Metcalf.
To contact us, send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Contact us via Twitter at rev_org or Borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Visit our website at galactica.libsyn.com.
Or view images relating to our cast on our Tumblr site, borgcast.tumblr.com.
There's also a Spotify playlist with all our play-out tunes on it.
She was blinded by the lights, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night. Blinded by the lights, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night. Blinded by the lights, wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night.
Shut it down!
By your command.